Have you ever watched a movie that said it was based on a true story and wished that you could fact check it? That's how I felt after watching Lion, even though I read the book. Lion is the book / movie we will be talking about today. Welcome back to the Book to Movie Club. My name is Serena, and I'm so excited to be doing this video. It was another one requested in the comments of a previous video, so thank you so much for making that request and inspiring this video. And let's get into it. So fun fact, the book Lion was previously published under the title of A Long Way Home when it was first released in 2013. This book is written by Saru Brierley. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing it correctly. With the help of Larry Buttrose. Still no idea. Anyway. It is a memoir based on Saru's life, being born in India and then adopted by a family in Australia. It is a book and movie that I've known about since probably the movie was released, but for some reason I've never seen the movie. The movie came out in 2016, and even though I love Dev Patel, look at that face, love this man, I've never seen the movie. So again, I'm glad that this was recommended so that I could finally dive into it. I also don't read a lot of nonfiction, and I wish I read more of it. So I was happy when I realized that this book was a memoir about a real person's life. It was heart-wrenching. I almost cried. I'm actually surprised I didn't cry. It's such a bittersweet story. A lot of it is sad, but it has a happy ending for the most part. And so let's dive in. So the book starts off sharing how Saru begins to tell his family the story of his life in India before they adopted him and he was brought to Australia. He was adopted, I believe, at the age of 5 or 6, and 1 year after his adoption begins to feel comfortable enough to tell his family about his life in India. As I was reading this, my mind first went to how uncommon it is for people to have such vivid memories at such a young age. I think it's incredible that he was able to recall these things, especially with the events leading up to his adoption being so traumatic. When people experience trauma, often they don't remember anything before that time or during that time. So for him to be able to recall and retell what he could remember at a young age, and even at an older age to be able to recall and retell all of us this story is truly amazing. To get into it, Saru grew up in a small town in kind of Western India, and when he was young, he was out with his brother, and they take a train to who knows where so that his brother can work. But Saru is so young that he's tired. It's the middle of the night. He's like, I need to go to sleep. His brother says, fine, you sleep here on the bench in the train station and I will be back. But when Saru wakes up, he starts to panic. He doesn't know where his brother is. He talks about in the book trying to recall what was going on in his mind when he started to look for his brother at that time. And he thinks that he assumed his brother was on a train. So he gets on a train, is looking for him, panics a bit, but then falls asleep again. And when he wakes up, the train is in motion and his brother is nowhere to be found. It turns out he was on the train for about 2 days, and it took him all the way from Western India to Calcutta, near the east coast of India. And when he's there, he doesn't really know the name of the town he's from. He gives this name, but it's so far away, no one knows what he's talking about. And he has to fend for himself as he tries to figure out how to get home. He doesn't end up finding his way home and is taken to an orphanage and eventually adopted by a couple in Australia. Once he's there, he tells the story of how he got lost. He tells his adopted mom, he tells a teacher, and they're all very attentive and very open to receiving his story and are taking notes and just trying to help him recall all of these things. And it isn't until he is in college the second time, I want to say, like he goes to school for accounting and then he goes back to school for hospitality. And at that school, outside of Sydney, he meets a bunch of international students from India, and this really starts conversations about his childhood again and what his life was like when he was living in India. And a conversation with one of his peers there opens the door to finding out what town he is really from. That classmate had a parent who worked for like the train authority in India, and they were able to ask the dad questions about this name of a town or area that Saru had in mind, and that really started the search for him. Eventually, using Google Maps, which I don't even remember what year all of this took place, but the fact that Google Maps was even available to be used is amazing. Yeah, I'm not sure when the Google search takes place or when Google Maps even was invented, but luckily it's extremely useful in this situation. And he starts to recognize the train station, I believe, or something in the town that he grew up in, that he's like, I remember this place. So eventually he is ready to return home to India to find his family. So it takes him about a year after identifying the town on Google Maps to finally go to India. And when he does, he recognizes certain areas and finds the house that he grew up in, but his family doesn't live there anymore. Luckily, there are some people around who are able to speak English, who he speaks to, and names his siblings. He can't remember his mom's name, but he knows his sibling's name, and the guy is like, hold on, wait here. No, I think he follows him, and he's able to find his mother by talking to this man. And it's so beautiful. In the book, he talks about how he approaches 3 women together, and he's like, no, it couldn't be this one, it's not that one. Looks at his mom and is like, that is her, after not seeing her for 25 years. And that is when I wanted to cry. Another, I want to cry just thinking about it. So the book is dedicated, and at the very front it says, you can't see it, it says for Gudu. And that was his older brother, the one who took him on the train when he was lost. So when he goes home and meets his mother, he's like, where's my brother? And he finds out that his brother passed away around the same time that he went missing. They assume he either was hit by a train or fell off a train and passed away. So unfortunately, he was never able to see that brother again, but he was reunited with the rest of his family. Eventually, his family in Australia went to India and was able to meet his family. He gets a dual citizenship and goes back and forth and tries to support his family in India as much as possible. So this book was a very quick read. I believe it's like 273 pages. I read and listened to the audiobook while I was like out on walks, and I loved it. Again, I don't read enough nonfiction, so I'm so glad that this was recommended to me. I also find it hard to rate memoirs because this is somebody's life story. But in general, I think it's well written. I think it was very engaging, and it's a beautiful story. So yeah, I recommend everyone, if you haven't already, because obviously it's been 10 years, I recommend everyone read this book for sure. Now let's get into the movie. So as I mentioned, the movie Lion was released in 2016, and I believe that's when the book's title was changed to match the name of the movie. And I didn't mention this. The author's name at birth, so his name was changed to match the pronunciation. So the Saru that we see on the cover of the book is not the way that it would be spelled in Hindi, I believe. He might have changed it back. No, he didn't. But yeah, the Saru in Hindi means lion. And so that's what the title of the film comes from. And then once the film was released, I believe they changed the title of the book to match it. That's what I think. I don't know. But the film was released in 2016. It was directed by Garth Davis, who also directed the movie Foe, which I've done a video about. Go watch that. And the screenplay was written by Luke Davies, who also wrote the screenplay for News of the World, which I actually didn't like that much. I never finished it, but I do love Tom Hanks, so maybe I'll give it another try. It is starring Dev Patel and Nicole Kidman, along with many other amazing actors. And the budget for this film was only $12 million, and it made $140 million worldwide, which I think is amazing. It was nominated for 6 Oscars. It didn't win any, but it did win 2 BAFTAs, one for Best Adapted Screenplay, which we love, and another for Best Supporting Role, for actor in a Best Supporting Role. And that was won by Dev Patel. And I'm very confused by that. I kind of want to look into why. I hate that they can do that, actually. Dev Patel is the star of this movie. Obviously, he's playing the title, the title actor, the title role. But they put it to be nominated for Best Supporting Role, which doesn't make sense and doesn't seem fair and shouldn't be. I think people do that because generally, if the people who are nominated for Best Actor, if there's too many big names, too many big hitters, then you don't have a chance at winning that. Then they'll put you as supporting role, which isn't fair to the other people who are actually in supporting roles who were nominated because you've had more screen time, you've done this, you're the star. Anyway, I don't like that is all I'm trying to say, but he won, so I'm not too mad at it. So yeah, those are some of the accolades and the things about this movie. I want to talk to you. The story in the film is the same as the story in the book, so I won't go too deep into the plot points, but I do want to talk about some of the differences that I recognized in the film that were not a part of the movie and vice versa. So there is a scene in the movie when Saru finds himself lost in Calcutta. He is picked up by this woman, this strange woman, who brings him into her house and starts to feed him and take care of him, when all of a sudden this man shows up and lays in bed with him, and I'm immediately like, is this a cultural thing or is he a weirdo? And it's very apparent that he is a weirdo, and it's like he's gonna get sold into something that we don't want to see or hear. Don't want to know anything about it. And this young boy realizes that this is not a good situation. They're not here to help me. So fortunately, he runs away. And he's like, I'm not sticking around to find out what type of ish y'all are into, which I appreciated, but that's not in the book. Now, did that really happen? I have no idea, because if it's not in the book, I don't have a way to fact check it. But yeah, that's one scene that's not in the book. After running away from these creeps, he's on the street and he attracts the attention of a man who's eating in a restaurant. The man approaches him and ends up taking him to the police, who then put him in the orphanage that he talks about in the book. Now, in real life, Saru is not in the orphanage for as long as some of the other kids. It doesn't take very long for him to be adopted. And when he's older, he visits the orphanage, and the same woman is working there, and she tells him, like, had you been here or showed up here any later than you did, we would have had a much harder time getting you adopted. Like, the kids who came after him ended up staying there until they aged out. So I guess you could say his timing was good, and he was able to find a very loving family to raise him. So the book and the movie both talk about his younger brother, who was also adopted from India. In the book, it seems pretty immediate that his brother joins the family. In real life, it was like 5 years after he was with his parents that they then adopted another child from India. The book also talks about, and this comes up in the movie as well, what really motivated his adoptive mother to adopt children. She shares that having children of her own was never an issue, but some negative experiences that she had as a child really motivated her to want to adopt, specifically little brown boys, she says. She said she had a vision of a brown boy standing next to her, and that's when she knew she needed to adopt brown children. It's weird to say, it sounds better as you're reading, but coming out of my mouth it feels uncomfortable. Anyway, one bone I have to pick with this movie is the significance they place on his romantic relationship when he's in college. The movie depicts him meeting a girl very soon into starting school who kind of acts as his bridge into the community of other Indian students at the school. And it's so stupid. So they're in class and the professor asked, or somebody asked him where he's from. And he's like, from Australia, and then brings up being from India. But he's like, I'm not really Indian in comparison to these other people, international students who are from India. And the white girl is like, but you like cricket? And one of the Indian students is like, oh, were you rooting for India or Australia? And he's like, Australia all the way. And I was just like, that's racist. Like this white girl being like, oh, but you like cricket just like they do. And it's also like, how do you know? They haven't met yet. So it's like, you literally don't know if he likes cricket or not. You're making an assumption. This is weird. Anyway, they had to fit this white woman into this story somehow. So she becomes this bridge to connecting him to the Indian community. And I hate that. It shows a lot more of their relationship as well. Compared to the book, she's like mentioned twice. They are dating while he is on this search, but she's not really, she doesn't act as like a motivator to do the search in the way that it's kind of portrayed. There's a lot of conflict between them. The movie demonstrates his obsession over finding his family in a way that I don't think it really gave in the book. In the book, he does describe it as being obsessive for a point of time, understandably. But in the movie, he's like hallucinating. He sees his brother in the mall. He hears his mom's voice screaming for him. And it causes a lot of tension in his relationship. And they end up breaking up. I don't think they get back together, actually. They meet up again and they like fool around. But he's like, stay with me. And she says no. Whereas in the book, he is still in this relationship when he goes to India. But he's telling his mom, like, yes, I'm in a serious relationship, but it's not that serious. We have no plans of getting married. And his mom is, like, disappointed. She's like, please, before I die. His birth mother is like, before I die, you have to get married. I don't know if he ever did. I tried to Google it. Couldn't find anything. So I don't know if this Lisa woman is still in his life or not. But they really play it up in the movie in a way that I did not like. In the book, he has this on and off search his entire life. He ends up going to school and meeting international students way before he meets Lisa, and they help him grow closer to his Indian identity and his culture in a way that feels really authentic and natural to him, unlike the nice things that his parents tried to do, introducing him to other Indian adoptees when he was younger. And so yeah, this whole like identity crisis that they show in the movie, although it was real, it doesn't happen in the way that they described it, and he's able to embrace the Indian international students without having some white girl being by his side. So that's just my observation. If we're comparing the two, what I assume to be the truth to a Hollywood spectacle, I don't know. All in all, so the first 45 minutes of this movie take place with him being in India. The next hour is him in Australia, kind of as a child, mostly as an adult, and this relationship development with his girlfriend, which was unnecessary. The movie is about an hour and 52 minutes. I felt like it could have been shorter, at least 15 minutes, if the romantic aspect was not so important. And it wasn't. And unfortunately, actually, it could have been equally as long, but they needed to take away some of the romantic part and put more of his life after meeting his family. I think that was really important after they reconnected. I think that was way more important to show. And it was very brief. He gets there, he meets them, it's emotional, but it's not enough time to really sit in that emotion and like feel it. You know what I mean? And I am an emotional person and wish I could have just sat in it for a little bit longer. So when we ask the question, which is better, it's hard in this context because it's the same, you know, it's very similar, but the parts of the movie that I didn't like make the book better, obviously. I loved this book. I am so glad it was recommended to me. I can't remember your name, but thank you so much. Recommend something else in the comments. Thank you all for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.